Hi, hello, and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richard Leahy. Here with my co-host, Maddie B. For those that have been a long-time listeners, we've talked about getting some intro music. It's been requested quite a bit, so we're trying that out this week. Hopefully it worked. We'll see how it goes. Otherwise, you just sat through 30 seconds of silence. If it works this week, we're going to try to incorporate it more into the show. So let me know what you think. We're using music by Ethan Maxwell. Hope I pronounced his name right. So thanks to him. Give a big shout out to him. We'll be promoting him on our website. So you can check us out at southboundsports.com. Get all your stuff there. Stay up to date with the show. We do it live every Tuesday on Facebook. Follow it up with the live show on Wednesday. We re-air it on YouTube. And you can always download it on your favorite podcast app. We're going to get right into high tempo this week, Matt. What do you got for us?
Another rough one on the Bulldog front. Had our game on Friday, had ideal weather conditions, injury bug bit us big again. Had 3 or 4 guys go out, and just one of those weird years. I've never had a year like this where injuries have just plagued us really, really bad. So was not reflective of the way that the game ended up playing out. Kept it close through most of it, and then towards the end, it just they tacked on a couple extra touchdowns, and we did everything humanly possible to give the game away. So hopefully we're going to rebound this week. We've got a pretty good game plan in place and a lot of points on the line trying to improve our playoff seeding.
Always tough when you have injuries, and good luck getting through that. I know it can be rough. I know a lot of fans that cheer for teams, especially on the college and high school level. It's tough to overstate sometimes how much injuries can affect your season going forward, and you hate to see it. Let's get into the NFL stuff. I have a question for you, Matt. Pittsburgh Steelers, do you think they have a quarterback controversy on their hands?
I would say a little bit, yeah, because you have Roethlisberger out, and I think that Hodges has been playing well. I don't know that he has to be removed just because when Rudolph gets cleared. I think you ride the hot hand. And you see, clearly he's still playing well in spite of all the injuries. And I think when you look at the depth chart with those different guys being injured, those are guys that he was practicing with anyhow. So he already has some level of familiarity and chemistry with. I think it makes sense to let him use those guys. Plus, they're winning. Winning always makes things better. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the same reasoning, but I hear the question a lot. Do the Steelers stick with Hodges, or do they go back to Rudolph? And the one thing that sticks out to me, and I hear this every time, is that the coach has to dumb down the playbook for the other quarterback. Like that's a bad thing. Any good coach that's worth a salary should be able to kind of manipulate the playbook to suit the quarterback's strengths. I don't care if he's only throwing 10 passes in the flat. Did they win? Yes. Did they win with Rudolph? Can you say that you feel comfortable with Rudolph leading to the playoffs? It's not like it's Roethlisberger coming back, where you have a guy that's vested and he's a Super Bowl champion, and it's a couple of different things. That's why I was so baffled with the Eagles' decision. Because if you look at the Eagles right now, it looks like they're falling apart, and they had a similar situation. You had the backup come in and win you a Super Bowl. And I know he got hurt this year, so you can't really rely on injuries, but I'm saying, why did they go back to Wentz? Why? What did he show you in the playoffs in the regular season that showed that he could get it done? And I'm not saying that that's what the Steelers have here with Rudolph and with Hodges, but I saw someone said down the line that the reason Rudolph fell to the second round was because a lot of NFL gyms didn't think that he had the physical tools to stick in the league for a long time. Then why are the Steelers going to waste time on him if that's true? He either has it or he doesn't. And to me, like you said, Matt, I think you ride the hot hand. I don't want to rush him back, especially with all the stuff that you get from the concussions. It's always good to kind of have that competition because I think it brings out the best in both. But right now, the Steelers need to win. If you want to make the playoffs, I've been saying it for the past 3 weeks. You have to win. You have to beat the Chargers. Then you have, what, a bye week? Is it the bye week this week? Or is it next week? I think it's this week, right? Week 7.
Yeah.
I'm going crazy. So they have the Colts, and then they have the Rams coming up, and I might have missed a team in between. But if you win...
I think it's flip-flop. Maybe it's Colts bye week, then Rams.
I don't know. Let's look it up since we are a Steelers show. We're going to look bad. People are going to make fun of us if we have it wrong. It's just like whenever I talked about the Pitt Panthers football schedule the other week when I looked at it and I made a note like, oh, they can run the table here. And then I went back and looked at it, and dude, I had my notes completely wrong. Like for whatever reason, I must have had multiple tabs open because I looked at it and I was like, man, I mixed up. I forget who it was, but I had someone else's schedule up when I wrote down my notes, so I looked like an idiot. So they have the bye week, and I am missing a team. It's Miami. So they have the bye week. Miami, of course, that should be a gimme. If you lose Miami, you shouldn't make the playoffs anyway. They look like they are tanking, and they don't have any wins yet. Then it's the Colts. The Colts are the team that's kind of surprising because I thought the Rams were going to be the challenge. But the Colts have been playing well. So you have the Colts and then the Rams, and I think they are all at home? Yeah. You have 3 home games. Win them all, get a winning record. I don't care who the quarterback is, but the fact that some people think that he has to put Rudolph in to open back up the playbook, that doesn't mean anything. Scheme plays to get your guys open and to make plays. If you don't think he can throw deep, then don't call any deep routes. I mean, he hits some deep routes, maybe.
I'll take it further. When you look at it, whether it's Rudolph, even if it's Roethlisberger, if you have a guy that can move the ball, then you go with the guy that's moving the ball for you. Just, I think there's a lot of movement with Rudolph because he was a second-round pick and you don't want to give that away. Then there's a good chance that you can end up having you can get trade collateral for Rudolph because in the NFL there's always teams looking for quarterback play, and Rudolph, because of him being a second-round draft pick, is going to attract more people than an undrafted guy.
I look at it like this. As much as I rip on Mitch Trubisky and then the Giants pick of Daniel Jones, is Rudolph going to perform better than those guys? Because that's where the Steelers need to look at. Right now, they have a pretty young core. The defense looks like it's finally starting to get to a point where they can be aggressive and possibly win you some games. I know Devin Bush had a big touchdown. That was the first-round pick out of Michigan. Great guy. Big touchdown. Then you have some of the other guys making plays out there. It's kind of a young core on defense. It's not a veteran-led group. So you're going to have that transition time where it's not going to start to click. These guys have to get caught up to the speed of the game. And when that happens, you need to have your quarterback in place in a year or two down the line. Can you make a run? I don't know if it's necessarily this year or even next year. But I don't want to see the Steelers go where they're just playing loyalty, because when I grew up, or when we grew up, the Steelers didn't have that consistency at quarterback. They didn't have that guy. How many quarterbacks did they go through? And so,
went through
yeah, and I feel like I don't want them to say, because what they've gotten into the habit with Ben Roethlisberger is, we'll just get a guy in the late round and he can be with us for a couple of years. I mean, Landry Jones has given another go in the XFL. And hell, I hope he works out for him. We're going to talk about the XFL draft later in the show. I mean, as much as we didn't think he was a fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, there are other offenses that can fit his style of play. And if he can get back into the league through the XFL, great for him. But I don't want to see the Steelers just draft a guy and keep him around because of that. Because I look at wins, and I think that they showed a graphic during the game. It was like, which quarterback, first-time quarterback for the Steelers, got a win in their first game? I think it was like Roethlisberger, and that was it until Hodges. So at some point, You got to get a guy that can get you wins. Remember when everyone kept talking about Tom Brady and they thought he was a flash in the pan for what, 5 years? I feel like they kept talking about Tom Brady forever in the first part of his career, like, well, that was kind of a fluke. They only won by a field goal. Oh, that was kind of a fluke. They only won by a field goal. Oh, that was kind of a fluke. Oh, see? He got hurt a little bit there. Or, oh, the Giants beat him. Wow. And then like 20 years later, they're like, yeah, I guess he is the best. But remember how he had that poor combine? It's like people still can't wrap their head around it, that maybe he didn't have all the measurables. And so if that's what they're throwing at Hodges here, and they have all those like little duck things that they throw in during the game, like their little clips, it makes me think like they're not taking him seriously. And if he's going to be able to command the huddle to get you wins, I think you stick with him. I know a lot of people are saying that that's a crazy take, but personally, like I said, it's all about wins. I don't care if you Trent Dilfer your way into a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl still counts. They don't put an asterisk beside it because it wasn't won by a legendary QB. It's like the Ravens are like, yeah, we don't celebrate that one too much. Wins are wins, Matt. Anything else you got on the Steelers this weekend?
No, not too much. I was pleased that they were moving the ball as consistently as they were again. It definitely looks like they got something good going.
Because they're spreading the ball out. I think what they've been doing, and give credit to Ben, is I think they relied too much on the quarterback to help make the plays. Where now it seems like they're actually putting together a scheme with Hodges, because I don't think it's that they don't trust him, or maybe it's because he doesn't know the entire playbook. But again, those are just excuses. I really don't care. You're getting paid millions of dollars to scheme some offensive plays to get your guys open. And guess what? They finally did that. I mean, you could bring back Bubby Brister. I don't care who's quarterback. Tommy Maddox, find a guy from the XFL again to come in if he's going to consistently get you wins. That's all I'm saying. I'm just glad that the defense is finally starting to find its little groove, and they're starting to get pressure, make some big. Sutton made a great interception down the stretch. So getting some help in the secondary, which we needed. Man, it's so refreshing. I think Minka Fitzpatrick dropped an interception. But hell, just make some plays. You don't have to intercept the ball if you're breaking it up. So that's my final thoughts. Around the NFL, I know you want to talk about this, Matt. Jalen Ramsey, he finally got his trade. He went to the Rams. You called it what, strong-arming? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was surprised that the Jags actually pulled it off, or that they were willing to pull the trigger on it. Because for as good of a player as he is, the back and forth game, I have a hard time with players under contract wanting out, demanding to be traded, and I get where Ramsey was coming from, because of it appearing in the early part of the year like the Jags weren't making moves to try to improve the team, but that's not something that I feel like the player should be addressing and just demanding out of contracts. I mean, I looked at it no differently than the way Antonio Brown was trying to push his way around and to get to these different teams, and it's just I don't like it.
I'll say I think it's the way professional sports, not just football, are going. Players realize now with social media that it's not even that they can get what they want, because if you go back and listen to Le'Veon Bell talk about his contract, he said that he finally got what he wanted and that he won. But I mean, everything's out in the open now. You can see how much money he lost. Now he plays on the Jets, a team that's awful. I know the Steelers don't have a much better record, but are they really throwing the Jets on a Sunday night game? Or I feel like Steelers have been on how many primetime games already? 2, 3? Almost half their games. How many have the Jets been on? Like none. No one had any hopes for them. They're talking about like Sam Darnold coming back, like, yay, you can finally get a win. And Le'Veon Bell, he won that deal. It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't go to a contender. Like, you took less money. You should at least went to the Patriots. It worked out for Antonio Brown for like 2 seconds. Actually, 1 week. 1 week it worked out for him. And now he's trying to come back. He says that they're already paying him. They should just let him play and earn his money. Like, it's a complete mess. So I think with Ramsey getting his trade, is it going to work out? The Rams, they looked like a team that I was worried about for the NFC side. Now, it doesn't even look like they're going to finish third in their division, probably. 49ers are undefeated. The Seahawks look like they're finally starting to click back up with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll looks excited on the sidelines. And so, do the Rams even make the playoffs? Because I don't know if they're even going to make it. So you force a trade to a middling team. I don't know if he fixes their deal. I think the other end of that trade was they traded, who's the other guy? Marcus Peters?
Yeah.
To the Ravens.
Which does not help Pittsburgh at all.
I'm not really worried about the Ravens because you saw John Harbaugh out there wearing those sunglasses, Matt.
Well, guess what? Maybe he wore the right pair of sunglasses. He stole the sunglasses with the magic power on them because he got the win.
Well, I'm saying this. I don't know if the Ravens can keep it up with Lamar Jackson. We'll see. Can he take the amount of hits? Because they might only have... I was looking at Cam Newton. And Cam Newton looks like he's always getting injured now. He's having these issues. He said that, I don't know if you saw it because it's big down here in Carolina. He said that he had a foot issue that he tried to keep quiet from the doctors because he didn't want to have to sit out more if he could play through it. And then, of course, like whenever you try to do that, you're going to get injured again. Like it never works out hiding an injury. So that is a prototypical running quarterback, and he's big. Like he's built. That'd be like if Ben Roethlisberger was he's heavier than what Cam Newton is, but if Ben Roethlisberger was like 20 pounds lighter and he took a beating like Cam Newton because he was running all the time, like Ben runs to avoid hits, Cam runs to get yards. Lamar Jackson's like a skinnier version of that. He runs to get yards. He's bound to get hit. Is he going to hold up? That's the question. Are they going to go 13-3 and then get injured first week of the playoffs? We don't know.
Well, I will say with watching Lamar Jackson and watching Kyler Murray with Arizona, the one thing with both of those quarterbacks, they're doing a really good job. And maybe it's the fact that they've come from running spread style systems in college. But it looks like with both of them, they have their runs, but then they also are getting down. They're getting out of bounds. They're not taking the kind of hits that a Cam Newton has in the past. And I think part of that is watching how Cam's career is now being cut short because of wins. And Carolina seems to be playing better with their backup right now. So I think you were saying about quarterback controversies. There's one brewing there.
You're breaking up a bit there, but you're saying that Carolina's playing better with their backup quarterback. And yeah, because I think when you have a quarterback that is hurt and he's trying to force things, it's not going to work. So whenever you get a guy that's healthy and then he has all the options there, it's going to open things up. At some point, you have to rely on your coaches and let them take over. For whatever reason, a lot of people knock Tom Brady for that. Like, that's Belichick. He's scheming up. Belichick's master of the defense and also scheming up all these great offensive things all the time, no matter who his assistant coaches are. Like, people think that he's just this amazing guy, but at some point, Tom Brady decides, hey, you know what? I'm not going to hold on to the ball for 10 seconds here in the pocket. And I still think you see a lot of quarterbacks that run out, and especially in the college game, they get outside of the pocket. Do they throw the ball away? No. They're running out of bounds for a 5-yard loss. They're holding on to the ball, taking a hit. And you're right. That's what you need to learn. And maybe you're right. Maybe these guys are coming from a new breed of offense where they're learning that. But the one game, and I know we're not talking college yet, but I was impressed with, I watched the Iowa-Penn State game. Penn State's new quarterback, Sean Clifford. I thought he did a hell of a job sliding when he ran. He would run, and I would say that he probably tried to get 4 or 5 yards a pop, and then he was immediately sliding. Because at some point, you have to know the down and distance. You know it's first down. You get a 5-yard gain. That's a hell of a play. I mean, That's going to put you in a great position. And that's something that I didn't see last year with McSorley. And guess what? He's a quarterback that was always banged up, it seemed, because he was taking those hits. So maybe it is something that's entering the minds of these college coaches like, hey, if you're running and it's first down, like you're the quarterback, you should know what down it is. Slide. Unless it's third down in a crucial part of the game where you have to try to maybe move the sticks or even a fourth down. Heck, even if it's second down or third down late in the game, you can still slide a yard short and then you have another chance. If you get your bell rung, I mean, it's going to not work out for you. So give a shout out to James Franklin for that, because I believe that he has to be coached into doing that, because I don't see a lot of other quarterbacks doing that. And like I said, a heck of a lot of them can't even throw the ball away correctly. And that's 100% coaching. So maybe you're right. Maybe running around and learning how to not take the hits, because you saw RG3, he was always taking weird angled hits too. Because I think the big gap in college to NFL is the speed of the defense. Where before, I think what catches up with you as a rookie quarterback, you think, oh, I can avoid this hit. And then like a split late, your knee's taking the brunt of it because you couldn't quite get out of the way. And I think that's the problem RG3 had, where he was taking a lot of weird angle hits because he wasn't anticipating the defense being that fast. So maybe having Joe Flacco around for one more year helped Lamar Jackson get that game speed down. But I don't know. That's just speculation. Anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think you got it all.
I mean, that's just speculation on my part, but I think that's going to be key. Quarterbacks avoiding the hits and trying to make moves. My last NFL topic for the week, I think we're doing good on time. The NFL officiating is awful, because I watched some of the games, and I know gambling's becoming legal now, so I wanted to add this to the show, because at some point it's like, what are you doing? I watched the Browns get ripped off, and I know I already gave credit to the Seahawks looking like they put it together, but I thought, and everyone knows if you listen to the show, I'm not a Browns fan at all. So I thought they came into the season overhyped, and you're seeing the same old Browns team. I was hoping the Steelers sweep them. They didn't do it yet, but I'm hoping that they can get that done and just put them on a path to the playoffs. We'll see. But I watched the Browns battle, and I thought that they stopped the Seahawks late in the game. But it was like 2 minutes and 14 seconds. There was a pass on the sideline. The Seahawks guy was bobbling it completely. You could see it on the thing. Like, I don't think he even came close to making the catch. But guess what? The TV didn't show replay. All they said was, well, the Browns really can't challenge that catch because they're already out of challenges. Which brings me back to the point of, why is the NFL wasting time with these coaching challenges? Because before that game even happened, I had on my notes the Chiefs game. Why would anybody watch that game? There were so many penalties, Matt. I don't know if you watched that one. There was at least 20 penalties. At least.
No.
Ridiculous. How could you have that many penalties that were just uncalled for? And then there were 2 challenges, I believe, to get extra penalties. It's like, why? Why is this a thing? They either have a guy in the booth, like I think the Big Ten got that right 20 years ago when they started to do the replays in the booth. If there's something clear cut in the booth, like the guy dropping it, just correct it. You can correct it without the head official running over and looking in that little, TV the size of a Nintendo Switch, like a 7-inch TV screen. That's what he's looking at. And he's going to make the call. Why waste that time? Just call it down. There was one, and it might not even have been this week because for whatever reason, the Chiefs are always on TV. But like Andy Reid pulled it out, and they made a big deal about him pulling out the challenge flag. Then he slowly put it in his pocket. And they're like, well, he must have saw something on the TV. It's like, why is he even having to do that? You just challenge it. You see it's a catch, call it a catch. It has to be frustrating for coaches. Hell, half the league, their coaches can't even work the clock correctly. They can't put together a 2-minute drive. Yet you're having them do the challenges. They're doing the ref's job.
Well, and I can tell you this from a high school standpoint, you have different crews of officials, and the ones that you can. Everyone has their criticisms of stuff that guys call or don't call, but to me, the officials that let the kids play the game and only call the penalties that affect the play are the ones that I appreciate the most. Because are you going to get every hold and every clip? No. But if you can get the ones that are blatantly affecting the play or affecting the way that the game is played, then I think they're doing a good job. And we've been lucky this year that the majority of our crews let you just play the game. Well, there have been a couple games this year where we've had officiating crews that they've excessively penalized us. And honestly, it takes you out of the flow of the game and it takes you out of your game plan. Because now instead of playing and focusing on like that series, you start thinking in the back of your mind, if they throw another penalty, what do I need to do in this long yardage situation? Or what do I need to worry about this player getting thrown out? Because if it gets thrown out, then we're going to be in tough shape for next week.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I looked it up while you were talking on NFLpenalties.com. There were 21 penalties in that game. 10 on the Chiefs. 11 on the Chiefs. 10 on the Texans, if I'm reading this right. That's ridiculous. Why? I looked down through, and it seems pretty consistent. Some of the games had less, but that's more than what they average because they both have 47 and 48 on the year. So they're probably averaging whatever that is. But it's not as many as what I saw on Saturday or Sunday. And I thought, why am I watching this? And it was so bad that even one of the commentators made a note because I remember they said, oh, that's Hockley's crew out there calling all those flags. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that still Ed Hockley? I don't think so. Did he get his son into the league just to call penalties? And then the one guy said, well, there's some guys that have worked the Super Bowl out there. It's like, I don't care what these guys worked. They're calling too many flags. I'm not having fun. Why would I watch this? And then I'm like, oh, well, let's see how the Browns are doing. This game's going to come down to the wire. And then I watch a Seahawks guy bobble the ball. They call it a completed catch. And then the TV guys are just like, yeah, can't do anything about that incomplete pass. Like, oh, really stinks for him that he wasted his coach's challenge on that other completed pass earlier in the game. Or whatever. It was like something else that could have swung the game that they used it on. And it's like, why? Just get it right. I don't care. And then last night, the Lions get ripped off. They're calling hands to the face when you can clearly review that and see that the guy didn't have hands to the face. Like, how are you getting flagged? Why are you not fired?
He hit him in the face really fast.
Like, you have instant replay. And I saw another one. Oh, this is going back. This is not NFL, but I don't want to forget talking about it. There was a play where the Penn State guy for the Penn State-Iowa game, I forget who it was, Penn State defender, clearly did a helmet to helmet. They called it on the field, and then for whatever reason, they reversed it. And to me, there's zero reason why you should reverse that call. Did he lead with his head? Yes. Did the receiver drop the pass? Yes. Was he defenseless because he didn't even have the ball? Yes. Check, ejected. I felt like they only kept him in because they were like, well, we have a primetime game against Michigan next week, and there's only 2 minutes left, so we really don't want to eject him now and have him miss the first half of the game. Like, I feel like that's the only train of thought that would have kept him in the game. Did he put his head down? Yes. That's all there is to it. Check. He's gone. He launched. Was the guy standing up? The receiver was like this, Matt. He reached up for the ball. So then he dropped it. So then he was standing like almost straight up. So did the guy launch it to his helmet? Yes. I don't understand how they overturned it, but it's like the same thing. Do you care about player safety? No. Because if you did, like these would be handled out like clear-cut cases. You wouldn't be overturning them.
Well, when I railed last week about it, when Florida State's linebacker got ejected, they reviewed it. His head was on his chest, and the receiver put his head down. It's as much on the receiver putting their heads down as it is like where the defenders are lining up at, because where it's heading to is, like you said before, it's down to the knees. That's a penalty. There's nowhere where you have a good zone to tackle.
Well, I did see one like that, and they did wave it off because he came out and he did say, I forget which game it was, and I watched too many games to remember. Because normally when I see a call like this, I don't write it down because I know it's correct, but you're right. They threw a flag because it was helmet to helmet. Then they came back and said that the receiver initiated contact with the helmet. And then that was it. But I mean, that's one guy who had the ball and was initiating contact. The Iowa guy did not have the ball. He didn't catch the ball. So you're out. I could see if you're trying to run the guy over, perfect. But I don't want to sit and complain about officiating. I just wanted to put it on here because I don't see how casual fans, and I looked at the TV ratings, NFL still blows every other sport out of the water. It's not even close. I should actually do a comparison between the World Series when it comes up compared to just like a regular NFL game on Saturday. Or on Sunday, I mean. Geez, I can't believe I keep saying Saturday. But I wonder if it's same or comparable. Because, I mean, it's just the biggest sport. And then you have gambling out there, and now you have these. I don't know how people aren't rioting. Because if you're a fan of certain teams, they're almost always getting screwed. I feel like the last 2 or 3 games I watched with the Browns, they got screwed by the refs. And it's like, how could anyone cheer for them? Like, how was the city of Cleveland just being like, no, thanks. You can just take our team again. We just don't care. Because at some point, the fans just have to stop caring, Matt. I don't know how Detroit fans can care whenever they get ripped off all the time. Like, I thought they did enough to win last night. I just don't understand. Whatever. That's just my thing. Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
All right, we're going to get into because I'm going to see it. Steelers right now are 2 games behind, and they're behind the Ravens, Matt. See, that's why that game last week was so big with the fumble by Juju, because right now they could be tied for first. I just wanted to bring that up because people were defending Juju. It's like, just hold on to the ball. Like, do you not just hold on to the ball any other time? But that Packers game last night swung the Detroit Lions down to last place in the division now. Unbelievable. All right, let's get into our quick topics, quick hitters. LeBron James, we talked about it last week. I know I said I don't like to get political, but I have to bring this back up. The Houston GM made the tweet about Hong Kong. LeBron came out and said that the Houston GM, Morey, was uneducated. That guy is an MIT graduate in statistics. He's probably the smartest guy in the organization. And LeBron called him uneducated? LeBron has a high school GED or whatever he has. That's it. He didn't go to college. He continually makes bad decisions. And so now, Matt, this is the most outrage I've ever seen against LeBron. This could be worse than him going to LA, hurting his reputation. Because I went through Twitter, I went through Reddit, I went through Facebook, I went through basically everything I could find on him, news sources, to try to see if anyone put this positive light on LeBron. No one is in his corner. No one. Just don't say anything. What are you doing? Like, we get it. You make money from China. It's all about big business for you. But don't try to say that this guy's uneducated, because he said the same thing about the presidential election last time. He said something about Trump voters were uneducated. I feel like this is his go-to. But this is a guy that barely graduated high school. Call people uneducated, it's just a bad look. So,
but he has done school, so that counts. He can say he's educated because he knows what a good education
Matt,
is.
you're right. He did get an honorary other high school degree, which might be the first in all time or whatever he got. But I will say, it's like, why? Anyone that watches, because the thing that pisses me off about this whole thing, it's because of like all the NBA care stuff. And then like the way that a lot of their players virtue signaled against the NFL and like they try to attack football because they would do the old, oh, well, in the NBA, we don't do that. We care about the communities and we stand in solidarity. And what LeBron do that one time? He wore hoodies out on the court. But did they take a knee with Kaepernick? No. Did they do anything else? No. Did they remove the All-Star game from Charlotte down here? Yes. They actively hurt one of their own cities, but now they're worried and they want people to not be mad at them because they don't want to offend China. It makes zero sense. They laugh about it all the time, how they don't want to visit the White House. But like now that they look like just money hungry people, like I don't know how anyone would take them serious. So I wanted to just call that back out. It's even worse than what it was last week. Do your own research. Look into his tweet. He fumbled all over his words. To call someone else uneducated whenever you can't even put together a sentence, LeBron fumbled around. He said he didn't want to get into a word or sentence feud, is what he said. Sentence feud, Matt. Is that even a thing? He didn't want to get into a sentence feud on Twitter with Maury, but instead he called him uneducated after he fumbled on his words.
Well, here, I mean, but I'll say this: how much time did he have to prepare for it? Because were the sound bites that he had from a question a reporter asked him?
Yeah, it was at a game.
Part of him just Matt,
it was a week. This has been going for a week. This has been going on for a week.
I know that, but I'm saying, as part of this, though, how much of this is the NBA just being like, well, LeBron James is the face of everything, and we'll just walk him out and let him just speak on whatever he wants to do? Because I mean, there was no problem with him doing it in Cleveland, and no problem with him doing it in Miami, and now doing it in LA. That they want him to be the face of these issues. That it was like, hey, maybe we'll just send him out, and then people will just calm down. And this is the first time that you're actually seeing the negative reaction to it.
It's unbelievably negative. I don't even understand how anyone's coming to his defense, which like I said, I couldn't find one guy that came to his defense because it made it seem like he was cool with what was going on in Hong Kong as long as you just didn't take his money from China. And I mean, it looked like he was at a Lakers practice jersey from, it just happened. So he had like a week to think about it. Like that's the best that he can come up with. Just say no comment. But let's move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Another big news, because these are supposed to be quick, but that one got off the rails. College football, for whatever reason, keeps trying to get back to Ireland. I sent you the list. Notre Dame and Navy are playing August 29th, 2020. And then out of the blue, Illinois and Nebraska announced that they're going to be playing in Ireland August 28, 2021. I could see Notre Dame playing in Ireland because of the mascot and the ties. I think Penn State played there once because of their Irish heritage. But Nebraska and Illinois? It's like, why? What are you guys doing? And I heard this through the Michigan channels that don't be surprised if Michigan starts playing games either over there, or I hope they don't play another one in New York or whatever and lose a home game. But if they could somehow, I think one of the things was they were talking about playing either Rutgers in New York City, maybe Yankee Stadium or whatever, I don't know, or possibly going to like London or Ireland. It's like, why? It's almost like, what are you doing? Like, you don't want your fans to see you play? You're going to put it over there so it's on at like 9 a.m, which I'm not even against, to be honest, because you're going to play Rutgers. Since Harbaugh's been there, it hasn't been competitive. At least let me watch that blowout while I'm watching game day. Might entertain me at 9 a.m. But it's just like an odd mix of teams that are deciding to, like, do you think people are going to be recruited from Ireland? Do you think that they are going to enroll in your college if you play a game over there? I have no idea, but it looks like it's the big thing, and I really hope we don't start seeing more of this because I kind of don't really like the London game in the NFL either. And then for another little tidbit, I'm going to put it on social media, but there are some professors that have been studying sports rivalries, and I had a little note on Penn State because they always talk about being unrivaled here, Matt. What they did was they had people that were alums or fans of certain teams. So they had like a couple 10,000 or so plus people go through and kind of answer like a questionnaire, multiple choice on knowrivalry.com. So KNOW, no, rivalry.com. You can go in there, and I think they still have the survey up, but the research came out. Penn State cares the most about Ohio State, Pitt, and Michigan. Those are their top three rivals. But Ohio State and Michigan, their fans said that was their biggest rivalry. Ohio State said Michigan, and then Michigan said Ohio State. So Penn State, you're out of luck there. So did Pitt fans say that Penn State is their biggest rival? No.
Of course not.
It's West Virginia, because that's the big rivalry.
When you print T-shirts that say unrivaled on them, then you know we can't pick them because they don't have a rival.
Not the most comical thing, and I already told you this, but there was one team that had Penn State as their overwhelming rival in college sports. So I'm going to give people a second at home to think about it. Who do you think, what team do you think has Penn State as their number one rival? Temple Owls, baby. 75% of their fans think that Penn State is their primary rival. That's what happens when you beat Penn State every once in a while, Matt. You become rivals. I mean, arguably, they're better in basketball. So, I don't know. I think this might have been specific to football, but I think it's funny either way. So check that out. Like I said, go to southboundsports.com. Make sure you follow us on social media or type that URL in that I gave you, and you can check it out. The next big thing, getting back into football, before college football, our league's back, the XFL. That kind of ties into college football because they did their quarterback draft, and we had two big ones that stood out to me. Landry Jones, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, is going back to Bob Stoops, and he's going to be on the Dallas Renegades. And Coach, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I got mixed feelings on it because on one hand, I wasn't crazy about Landry Jones as a quarterback, but the Dallas franchise brought on Hal Mummy, the air raid godfather, as the OC. And so that was one of the teams that I was looking at, interestingly following to see how he is going to adapt his air raid system to the pro talent that the XFL is going to be trying to bring in. And I'm curious to see what that looks like. Now, I know Landry played at Oklahoma and played in that air raid style system. So a lot of the terminology and stuff he should be familiar with. And I think that maybe that'll be a system that he'll be successful with.
I got one more for you. Cardell Jones, national champion at Ohio State, is being united with Pep Hamilton, former Michigan offensive coordinator, with the DC Defenders. How do you think that's going to work out?
I don't know. Was Hamilton with Cardell Jones?
Where?
When he was at Ohio State.
No, Hamilton was in the NFL at that time. What are you talking about? Hamilton was with Michigan. Before that, he was with the Colts and then the Browns. So I was trying to think if you were asking a serious question there, because I don't know where he played in the NFL.
Never high on Hamilton, and I think the bust potential is very high for both of them.
Well, I'll say this: Cardell Jones is a winner. I don't think he ever got a fair shake in the NFL, and there are some guys that I thought, given their fair chance, Dennis Dixon with the Steelers. I mean, he landed with the backup. He came out of Oregon. I thought he was going to be the first spread quarterback in the NFL. They never really gave him a fair shake. And then, of course, no one's going to take a shot at him. Good backup for the Steelers, possibly. We'll never know. But Cardale Jones, a known winner, they said he wasn't as accurate, but if you can move the defenses with your feet and eventually build that accuracy, why not? But he was never really given a fair shake. That's why I was confused at first at your poor joke, because I didn't know where he was at. I think he was with, the Chargers? Then he was with, I didn't know if he lined up with Pep Hamilton at the Colts or somewhere else, because I can't remember.
He was with Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo. So he's back. And
the only reason I joked that is because you said reunited with Pep Hamilton. So I don't know where he would have been that they would have been together in the first place, you dumbass.
Wow, you nitpicking on my words?
If you say it, you can't say reunited if you've never been together.
They are reunited from the Big Ten, Matt. And the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, where you're not following along. I just did a bit on Know Your Rivalry.
That's so lame.
Jeez. Taking things so personal. Who are you, LeBron? We have, I do have one thing that I had in my notes here. Pep Hamilton came out and said, when he was let go, multiple times, and I think he might even said it on that Amazon show that they filmed, that this is Jim Harbaugh's offense. So when he did his initial XFL presser, he said that he's looking for a dynamic, fast offense. So I'm curious to see what we're going to see out of him.
So I pick up a large bowling ball spread quarterback to head my team. That's a logical pick.
But Matty, did you look at the other quarterbacks that were available?
Are you telling me those were the only ones that they were going to allow in?
Matt, they have been trying to get... So let's back up, because I don't know if listeners even follow the XFL, but we've been kind of pitching it for a while now, because I think it's going to be at least a fun league to watch with guys like Bob Stoops and like Cardale Jones coming back, and Aaron Murray from Georgia. He's another one. But they put out feelers to all type of quarterbacks to try to promote the league. They wanted it quarterback driven. A lot of guys turned it down. I had said that they should go even further back and try to get guys like Vince Young, but I don't know if they even did that or what. Could you imagine if they got Mike Vick? Like, why not try to go after some gigantic names? But for whatever reason, maybe they did. They couldn't get it worked out. They settled on these 8 guys, and then they were doing a quarterback assigned. So it wasn't really a draft. Each league or each team got one premier quarterback. So the rest of the list goes like this. And some of these guys I don't even know. Brandon Silvers, he's with the Seattle Dragons. Philip Walker with the Houston Roughnecks. Penn State's Matt McGloin with the New York Guardians. Because like even there, it's like, what? You're going with Matt McGloin's? That's the best quarterback you're going to pull out of the Penn State like teams of the past? Like I feel like you could find someone better. Luis Perez from the Los Angeles Wildcats. Jordan Teamu, St. Louis Battlehawks, and then Aaron Murray with the Tampa Bay Vipers. So I didn't like that they're in gigantic cities that already mostly have NFL teams. I didn't like that fact with the XFL. I don't know how much I like this, because looking at this list, you're right. They just got a bunch of big, slow pro quarterbacks. If you want to compete with the NFL, I think what they should have did was gone spread and brought in some dynamic playmakers and really tried to push the up-tempo stuff. That's my take on it. We'll see how it works out, because Pep Hamilton tells me he's going to run like a fast attacking offense. I didn't see it, and it wasn't just at Michigan. I didn't see it when he was with the Colts. I didn't see it when he was with the Browns. I don't remember seeing it at any of his stops. So where has this offense been? Like he's magicking and we're going to pull it out and run it with Cardale Jones? Now, if he hired like Urban Meyer part-time as an analyst, then my ears would perk up like, oh, what kind of offense they running for real? But I know he's not going to do that. Or hell, hire Rich Rod. Rich Rod's with what, Ole Miss?
Yeah, he's smashing headsets up in the press box right now.
See if Pat White will come back. What's he doing? Hell, get Denard Robinson back with them. Denard's been floating around. I don't know if he's with an NFL team anymore, but could you imagine if Rich Rod reunited with Denard? He brought him to Michigan. I would have signed up to see that. I mean, it might not be accurate still, but I know he was in NFL shape. He was just in the league a few years ago. They made him a running back, so he might have to slim down a bit. But even if he stayed bulked up, he could take a hit or two. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn on how this is going to work out. But I do think it will make it through an actual year. They've already told the players that the salary is going to be about $50,000 a year for the season for most players. I think the quarterbacks might have gotten more than that, but they kind of have it slotted already. And now they're doing the draft. We were asked if we were going to do a live draft show, but it's kind of behind closed doors. They're just tweeting out, I think, or putting out on social media who's on what team. So we're going to cover that next week. Anything else you got on the XFL?
No. I mean, I'm liking that there seems to be some level of organization to it. It's not thrown together. Like I felt like what we saw with the AAF, where it was like there were some similarities with the way that they did their quarterback draft and trying to kind of push some of this out. But I think they're still leaving some room for the negotiations part and the financial backdrop to getting this off the ground. So it seems like they're doing it the right way this time.
I feel like they have more money than the AAF did, and I feel like the AAF was rushed because they knew they couldn't compete with the XFL. And I'm still baffled at the amount of fan support that the AAF got and how many of those same fans bashed the XFL. Because if you look on social media, it's like a lot of people saying like the AAF didn't get a fair shake and all this stuff. It's like, why are you knocking the XFL if they are basically the same exact league and they're going to be better funded? Like, I mean, Steve Spurrier had to just get his own championship ring. You think the AAF would have at least given him that when he was named champion, right, Matt?
Yeah, whatever.
So rude. I didn't even have anything on the AAC on here on the list, but you want to talk about anything on there? Because I remember you saying that Florida State... ACC. ACC, whatever.
The AAC, well, I don't know. The South Florida play?
Why are you talking trash, Matt?
Well, because you're the one that's just butchering your wordsmithing.
I know. It's a long day. The ACC, yeah, I didn't have anything on it because you have the Coastal in a complete mess. Everyone's tied. The best record, 4 teams are 4-2 right now because Miami pulled off one of the upsets.
We started our own circle of suck in the Coastal.
But it happens all the time. That's why, and I've been a big proponent of keeping one side heavier than the other, where I think the Big Ten, when they put Michigan back into the group with Penn State and Ohio State, I thought that helped recruiting. And I feel like the ACC kind of has its own thing going where on the other side, it's like Clemson and Florida State. And now if NC State needs to recruit to compete with that division or the other teams there, Louisville needs to recruit to compete with that division. But I feel like the Coastal now is left behind and they don't have that big name. Like Miami, they used to be pulling in all type of big names. Now they are not. Virginia Tech, they are not. And those are the teams that should be the premier teams. But because it's been one-sided all along, I don't know. I think it's going to be a big case study when Wisconsin takes on Ohio State. Because they're set up similarly where the West kind of hasn't competed with the East and the Big Ten for a while now. Whatever team came out of the East, you knew was going to win the conference. But is Wisconsin finally caught up? Because their numbers seem like they are as dominant, if not more dominant, than Ohio State. Their guys could actually out-athlete Michigan this year, when in past years on the field, they didn't have those guys that could compete at the same level. So I don't know if it's like a perfect circle for them, where is Wisconsin going to be able to push through and actually win the conference this year and then leverage that into a great recruiting class to really put them over the top? And is there going to be an equivalent team in the ACC? Like, instead of Pitt pulling off an upset in the regular season that doesn't end up mattering, is there going to be a team in the Coastal Championship or in the championship game from that Coastal Division that's going to possibly pull up an upset enough to give them a bump in recruiting to start to actually have a fierce rivalry in that championship game? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know that it affects it that much, because when you look, I mean, for a long time it was Florida State and everyone else in the ACC, and now that torch has been passed, and Clemson's holding the title right now and carrying the banner. So I mean, when you're looking, there have been blips on the radar. You had Georgia Tech that held their own for a while. You had Duke that came up, that were showing some competitiveness on the Coastal side. But you have seasons where there's teams that put up a good run, but you're not getting it's not so heavy that you're thinking, oh, someone from the Coastal is going to be competing for the national championship, or there are multiple teams. Like, it's not a situation like you're seeing with the SEC, where with the exception of Georgia now that just lost to South Carolina, you know, the arguments were always Georgia's in the conversation, Alabama's in the conversation. They were looking at Auburn and LSU. You know, there's multiple teams that they're saying, well, we got to figure out a way how they're going to fit these teams in. That conversation is not being had in the ACC. Even when the times were good, they weren't pushing that. You were even getting within the Big Ten, you were getting the looks of trying to figure out how to get Penn State in, how to get Michigan in, how to get Ohio State. Like, they were trying to push two of those teams, but because they play each other in the regular season, their losses were able to count each other out a lot more than Alabama and Georgia knocking each other out.
I think you're going to get it this year. And I think your point is exactly right, because you already have Michigan that lost a cross-conference game. And I think it's going to come down to that Wisconsin-Ohio State game. If Ohio State beats them in the regular season, then they're really going to push for Penn State and Ohio State to possibly both make the playoffs, because you have the same situation that they're pushing in the SEC with LSU. And LSU sitting right there, and everyone's saying, okay, if LSU loses to Alabama, are they going to back into the playoffs? Because you're sitting right there with possibly one loss. They've already had the cross win against, did they play Texas? So I think they beat Texas, and then they just beat Florida, didn't they? Yeah, that's Florida. Yeah. So they're saying if LSU wins out but loses to only Alabama, and Alabama loses the SEC, even though they're in the same division, are they getting in? And I think if you have that discussion, you have to have the same discussion with the winner of Penn State and Ohio State. Because I don't think Michigan's going to compete with Penn State this weekend. So I think that's it. If you're looking at the Penn State schedule, I thought they needed to get through Iowa, which they did. They're sitting at 7th overall right now. They get through Michigan. They have them at home. There's a sneaky, tough game on the road against Minnesota, because Minnesota's undefeated right now. But I think they're a little bit overrated, and I think Penn State is ahead of them so far in recruiting that they'll win that game. Then you have Ohio State. You're at Ohio State. I could see Penn State losing that game, but Ohio State's been unstoppable. So if they lose to Ohio State, what's going to be the difference between what LSU did and what Penn State did, I mean. So Penn State and LSU, they're right there. Texas keeps losing. How good is that non-conference win going to end up? So then you're looking at almost the exact same situation where, hell, Pitt could win the Coastal. Penn State could have a win against against Pitt that is in their conference championship game. Texas might not even play in theirs. So that might give Penn State a bump at the end of the season. And so I'm looking at the game this weekend. I broke down the numbers. Michigan has never played well on the road under Jim Harbaugh. I've talked about it on the show multiple times. They're ill-prepared, and I think it starts at the top. Whatever happened in 2016, where he's coming in and he's been like subdued as a head coach, I think he kind of let the college game slip him by, and he doesn't realize he's not the same coach that got Stanford fired up enough to beat USC and possibly the greatest upset of all time, at least from a gambling standpoint, because I think that was even higher than the App State over Michigan game, because Stanford was like 0-12 the year before. So Harbaugh was able to fire those guys up to get that win. You're not getting the same Harbaugh. When have you seen him fired up in the past 2 years? He's not fired up.
Well, what's he seeing that would make him fired up? There's nothing.
You can't be. At this point, it's on him. He can't keep saying that he doesn't have his guys because he has his guys. Is it the quarterback situation? Because you got a 5-star transfer. Then you have LSU that has a 5-star transfer. He has no issues. You have Ohio State that has a 5-star transfer. He has no issues. I think at some point, the conservative talk that Harbaugh is giving his quarterbacks about don't turn the ball over, I think it's making them afraid to throw the ball. And then they're holding the ball in the pocket, getting stripped. I think it all comes from the coach. Because in the last 3 or 4 years, it completely changed from the first year when he had Jake Rudolph that came in. And I think Rudolph came from Iowa. He already knew the system of college football. And I don't think that Harbaugh had enough time to intimidate him. But every other quarterback that he's had for more than 1 year, the second year, there's such a complete drop-off, it has to be coaching. Wilton Spate that first year, everyone thought, oh, maybe it was the injury. Since his injury, he hasn't been as good. Maybe that's just year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. Because Shea Patterson's completely different this year 2. John O'Korn, completely different in year 2. People just thought, oh, maybe he couldn't compete. But maybe if it's like 4 times in a row, 4 quarterbacks in a row that are ruined, Matt, it's on the coach. I watched Texas Tech throw in I think it was Texas Tech. They had a freshman quarterback slinging the ball all over the field. You can't tell me that Texas Tech can find a quarterback in the rough that's better than the 4 or 5 top 10 quarterbacks that Michigan has on their roster. Because it's not like they're bringing in 3-star quarterbacks. You have like four top 10 quarterbacks from the recruiting rankings on your team. None of them can play. That's on coaching. So you're going to go into Penn State. You already don't play well on the road. You can't stop the spread style offense with slants. I just talked about how Clifford looked great running the ball and sliding. Don't take hits from Michigan's defense. And I think that's where the big key is. When Michigan blew out Penn State the last 2 times, both were at the Big House. Both times Penn State got physically beat up. And I think there was also it was either a turnover or a fumble. The first game, I think it was a Jabril Peppers punt return early on that really set the tone and buried Penn State. And I don't think Penn State's going to have those mental mistakes at home. So if you're looking at the line right now was 7.5 when I made my notes for the show, I think Penn State covers. Don't be shocked if it's like 42-21. Because I haven't seen enough from Michigan's offense for them to move the ball. Michigan's also missing 3 or 4 guys on offense. I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done. So that's my take. Any thoughts you want to add on that?
I think to a certain extent that it is coaching, but I also think when you're looking at the transitions that he's gone through as well, with having the 2 coordinator system, with transitioning now to more spread style, there's a lot of different pieces that you're looking at that, you look at the struggles that Florida State had going from Jimbo Fisher's pro style to the Walt Bell spread to now with Briles spread. And I think that it's asking a lot. It's trying to figure out, what with the players that you have. And yeah, you're trying to match to a certain extent. You can take the scheme and try to tailor it to the players that you have. But the players also have to be receptive to taking on some of those rules. And I think sometimes some of it might even be Harbaugh kind of sticking with players and not throwing them under the bus. But he's trying to look for, like he's saying about his guys, but it might also be his guys that are willing to follow his system the way that he has it. And yeah, you're right. When he came back into the league, he was calling a successful offense with the Niners. He was calling a successful offense with Stanford. What's changed now that he's at Michigan? It's not like you're a successful play caller and now all of a sudden everything just bottoms out. Is it the assistants that you bring on board, that you have a lot of the guys that are coming in are more yes man, that aren't willing to challenge the status quo? I can't answer that question, but I think that's where you need to look, because philosophy-wise, the philosophies remain the same, but it's the coaching points, that who's coaching the quarterbacks and who's coaching the wide receivers and what those reads look like. Because you can have a lot of different chefs in the kitchen, but if they're not cooking right, then you're not going to put a good product out.
Well, I looked at the game with Penn State against Iowa because they both had a common opponent in Iowa. Penn State was able to get KJ Hamler in space multiple times in that game, and I know he's a burner, but Michigan has some athletes too. And the whole thing they talked about all summer was getting guys in space. I think they tried to do that one time. And then the commentator kept talking about, I think it was Joel Klatt, kept saying, why isn't Michigan taking another deep shot? And then I watched Penn State do it like 4 or 5 times. And to me, that's the difference in coaching. Like, you can't say, well, we're going to save those looks for whenever we really need them. You beat Iowa 10-3. You pretty much really needed them. Like, they had a chance to come back. You had to get 2 sacks in a row, and they still almost converted on like a 4th and 20 or whatever that last play was. Like, you either have them and you can use them, or you don't have them at all. So I think what you're saying is right. Maybe it is the guys. Greg Roman was the old offensive coordinator with the Niners. A lot of people hated on him, but he's now with the Ravens. And look what the Ravens are doing with Lamar Jackson. So maybe whenever you lose an innovative guy like that, the other guy was Jed Fish, who was great with Harbaugh that first year. Everyone thought he should have been promoted to full-time offensive coordinator, and he kind of ended up getting forced out, or that didn't happen and he went somewhere else. He was at UCLA for a while. I don't know where he is now. But I think he had a guy like that complemented his pro-style spread pretty well. And now he's like hiring Josh Gaddis to run a spread offense, but Harbaugh's still injecting his own philosophy into it, and it's not working. Like, at some point, he has to step back and say, you know what? I'm going to help call the game. Like, we should run here, we should pass here, do whatever, but he can't be telling him to throw in a fullback in a single back situation and then watching that fullback fumble because he hasn't been practicing with the offense. I mean, that play was 100% on Harbaugh against, I think it was Wisconsin, early in the game. It was pretty clear that he had been practicing with defense the entire time. Well, he came into the game as a running back like 2 or 3 times. He's fumbled twice. Why is Harbaugh doing that to the guy? It's like, man, of course the fans are going to be mad at that single guy if he keeps fumbling, but why is he even there? I thought you moved him to defense because he didn't fit the new offense. Like, I have a hard time believing that Josh Gaddis has full control. If he's like, hey, yeah, in the middle of the game, let's put in that guy that didn't practice with us and have him fumble the ball. Like, to me, that just makes it seem like he doesn't have any control at all. So that's why I think Penn State will win. I think Franklin's good at, he's not great at in-game coaching decisions, but he's good at letting his coordinators do their thing. Joe Moorhead, he wasn't afraid of letting him do his thing, promoting him to head coach at Mississippi State. Didn't say anything negative about him, nothing. Guess what? He seems like he's happy for the guy. Now, no wonder James Franklin can easily get guys to come in. Not having any issues there, and recruiting's going to keep going up. And that's why I think this is the turning point. Michigan, if they were to upset Penn State, possibly it could swing the balance back into Harbaugh, but at some point, recruiting has to flip because you can't keep getting high recruits and have them perform like garbage and then make excuses, because at some point Penn State's going to start getting those guys. And if Penn State can beat Ryan Day, this could be the year that James Franklin takes over the Big Ten. And he could do with coordinators and strong recruiting. So that's it. Could you imagine a league where, or a year, it could be back to where Penn State's in the conference championship and Pitt is in their conference championship game? Could be one of those years, Matt. Anything else you have for college football?
Nah.
Let's get to the final bell. You have anything to wrap up the show?
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised right now that the Washington Nationals are just taking it to St. Louis right now. They're up 3-0 in the series, and we're into the seventh, and they're winning 7-4, so it could be just a straight sweep in the series.
It looks like it's going to be, and I spared you that because I was going to put it on, and I'm like, nah, because I know it has to be tough. Because, I mean, the Pirates don't even get to make it, so. But I wonder how much of it has to do with the Capitals getting the monkey off their back. Because a lot of pro teams that kind of feed off each other in the same city, you see one team do it, and then the media kind of lays off you. Because I'm not saying that they looked at the Capitals and they thought, oh, well, if they can do it, now we can do it. Like they couldn't do it before. I think what happens is the media was so hungry there for a Washington championship. It had been so long that they were just hounding the players. Ovechkin took it upon himself, got it done, got the monkey off his back, and now it's kind of like a relaxed thing. Like, oh, the Nationals? We're used to them choking. We're not going to be so hard on them because we have the Capitals to look forward to. Hockey season's right around the corner. And so I think that you're not getting the extra media pressure. And maybe it's just something, because I don't live in the DC area, so maybe I'm totally wrong in the situation, but I wonder how much that has to do with it. Because you could even look at Philadelphia the same way. The Phillies won, but before that, everyone was always about the Eagles choking. Eagles are choking. The Flyers are choking. But then once the Phillies won, guess who didn't get a bunch of stuff about choking anymore? The Eagles. At least I stopped hearing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's two cities close in proximity that I think had a history of choking, practically. The media was tough on them. And once the baseball team won in both, or baseball in one city, hockey in another, I think that kind of opens it up from the media. Because I think you're looking at the same thing with Atlanta. Why do the Braves keep choking? I mean, they had that one run. They should have had more. Why do the Falcons keep choking? Like at some point, the pressure for the city is just so much because like you're a player, you get off. It's like, finally win one. Please win one for Atlanta. We really need it. It's like random Joe Schmoes doing that when a lot of guys now, they're just kind of off celebrating hockey because they jumped on that bandwagon and they're like, oh, baseball's on. I'll turn that on. We're in the World Series. Great. Like, I think the pressure's off. That's my read on it. Anything else you got?
No, just check out the store. Check out our website. Do some good shopping. Help us out.
And if you got anything else you want to add to the show, let me know. Like I said, we've been trying to do some music and stuff and give me some more feedback on that because I'm all for trying different things. If you want to see it, I did get a message too. Someone told me that our videos are too long, which I said, you talking about the show? Because right now we only do one show. I said, it's a podcast. You can listen to the podcast. The video is just extra. And they were like, well, I like to see who's talking. I said, well, it's really only me and Matt. And so I went back and forth, but we did get some comments that our videos were too long. So I'm going to try to put up some shorter videos. I know I talked about it earlier, but Steelers got off to such a rough start. It's hard to get good stuff to promote. So we'll try that. Send me some more feedback if there's some other stuff you want to see, because any little bit helps, and we'll try to do our best. But that's it for the show. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.